Holistic connection. Let's heal. Holistic connection. Let's learn. Holistic connection. Let's grow. Holistic connection. Let's be real.
Hello, everyone. This is Pamela Topjian, your host for Holistic Connections, Conversations with Holistic Practitioners. And today I have Valerie with me, and I want to welcome you, Valerie, from Sugar Maple Counseling, and ask you to introduce yourself and share what you do in the holistic healing space.
Hi, everyone, and Pamela, thank you for inviting me onto the show. So I am a psychotherapist in New York's Hudson Valley. For those who are local, I'm out of the Yorktown area. I run a psychotherapy practice that is a bit atypical. It's not really your conventional CBT type of place. I don't really do that. I actually specialize in treating people who are experiencing grief, especially young adults who have suffered parent loss and also complex trauma. But it's more so my modalities that are different for the area. So what we're going to be talking about a lot tonight are the modalities I do. One is a modified version of EMDR, which I'm sure most of you have heard of. If not, I'll explain it anyway. And it's called induced after death communication therapy, or known as IADC for short, and also a type of ecotherapy known as forest therapy. And finally, one that I'm actually kind of in the process of developing myself right now called Ecotherapy Enhanced Grief Processing Therapy, or EEGPT, which is a mouthful, so I might change that name. But yeah, um, again, thank you for inviting me on, and I really, really look forward to just explaining all this further.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for being on and for agreeing to share what you have to offer today. It's also interesting. I know we won't have enough time to explain everything, but maybe we can have you on another time to go a little further into something specific. So the things that you're putting together and developing on your own, it sounds almost like it's a combination of a lot of the things you already do. Yeah,
Yes.
that sounds really interesting.
Yeah. Basically how they came about is that I should probably backpedal a little bit.
Yeah.
So I am a licensed clinical social worker,
Hmm.
but I'm also what's called a certified forest therapy guide. And to people who are listening, you do not need to be a clinician and to be a certified forest therapy guide. It is a certificate that's through what's called the Association of Nature and Forest Therapy. It's very, very long to get into, but to give a summarized version, forest therapy developed out of what we call forest bathing, which is also known as Shinrin Yoko. Forest bathing is a very popular concept in Japan, and basically it became popularized in the 80s because the Japanese government realized that a lot of sedentary diseases are, leading to a lot of health issues. So they did a lot of research and realized, just going back to their Shinto roots, that going outside makes us feel better. Um, the reason why going outside makes us feel better is because, as I'm sure you've all noticed, when you go outside, you're under a tree, you feel better, right? It's not just
Absolutely.
because yeah, it's not just because you're in the sunlight and the oxygen and all that stuff. The reason is that trees, and in particular, evergreens, give off a compound called phytoncide. This reacts with us very strongly. What it does is it helps us produce natural killer cells, which are antioxidants and have anti-cancer properties. Among other things, there's been a lot of research through Harvard Health and a lot of leading institutes that are showing that going outside really does, in fact, increase our serotonin. It really does make us feel better. And I think, for a lot of people listening, I'm guessing a lot of you are very outdoorsy anyway. So you're thinking, well, yeah, I knew that. But it's nice that the science is really actually starting to present itself and say, yeah, this isn't just in your head. It's absolutely true.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so to bring this up to date with forest therapy, so forest therapy takes all of the beauty of forest bathing, but takes it a step further because whereas forest bathing is really just about the psychophysiological benefits we get from being outdoors, forest therapy is about reciprocity with nature. So it's taking all of that into account, and then it's about us reminding ourselves that we're not greater than nature, we're not a part of nature, we are included in this whole circle.
Yeah.
And our relationship has a direct impact and vice versa. So, what I do in forest therapy is that I lead people through a series of guided meditations, which in forest therapy we actually call bodyfulness because we want us to get
Mm.
outside of our minds and feel contact with nature and not going within ourselves. It always ends with us then having a tea ceremony. And
Oh,
the tea
nice.
ceremony, yeah, yeah. And the tea ceremony is with foraged herbs and so forth that I
Mm.
gathered in the woods or I grew in my garden. So it's just a really nice way to break that whole sacred like liminality, that space of it all, and just come together and relax and have conversation after.
Yeah. Of course, it sounds like it's something that would be just in person, but I wonder if you work with people remotely and then you give them maybe this homework or, instructions on what to do on their own as far as going out into nature and that.
Yeah, I mean, there's different ways to do it. So I would say
Mm-hmm.
optimally, yes, it is being outside. But when I say
Yeah.
outside, I don't mean going on a hike. I think a lot of people, when they think of going outside, they think of hiking. This is more so about the word sauntering, which I think is the most
Mm.
word. It's reminding us to take a step back and be slow. When I do these experiences with people, I can do it on less than an acre
Yeah.
because really it's about having people take things slow. And one of the meditations I do, for instance, and I customize it based on the people there. I also do it with
Mhm.
children and so forth. But one of them
Nice.
I do is called Worlds Within Worlds. And it's where I ask them just to sit down and just stare at a square that's maybe like a foot big and really just stare into it.
Mm.
And then they notice in time how much is going on just in that patch of grass.
Yeah.
Um, or I ask them to have a conversation with a tree. And by that I mean like put your hand on a tree, let yourself feel that energy.
Yeah.
Think about this tree's connection to the rest of the woods. Think about all of its secrets. Think about everything this tree has witnessed since being a sapling. So there's so many ways to go about it. But to answer your question, Pamela, I apologize. Exactly. This can in fact be done indoors. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I realize that not everyone has access to the outdoors, so it can be done remotely. It's more so just preferably it's outside. But there
Sure.
are ways, of course, to do it where you have just a potted plant, or even if you don't have that, even really just watching a video of maybe a
Mm.
waterfall or something. There's so many ways to do it. Um, I actually did that with my father when he was in home hospice
Oh,
because he was
yeah.
found and he loved nature. He's the one who really got me into it. And I wanted to still have him be able to feel a part of that. So I
Yeah.
just got really creative with bringing it in. I did things as well, like those plastic bird feeders that you can stick to the window.
Yeah.
One of those. So just every day he could observe the birds. And I led him through these like meditations where I was like, what do you think it would be like to be a bird, to have this sense of freedom and everything? And it's just a very powerful way for us to feel connected again.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I love that so much. Yeah, there's
You.
so many ways that you can bring nature to people or bring people to nature who might not otherwise be able to go outside, as you said, or go for a hike, but even less so, even just go outside or have a space. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and yeah, and even like you said, even a potted plant. I mean, that's very grounding to just take care of a live plant in your home. And it doesn't have to be huge and doesn't have to be a whole sunroom of plants, but just to have one and sort of connect with nature in that way, if that's all you have. And it's not limited to just people who can go out on a hike in a forest, right? I mean, I think that that forest therapy, those words together might make people think that, oh, well, I can't do that because I can't get to a forest or maybe I'm disabled or, whatever it is. So, yeah, so that's good
Yeah.
to know.
Yes, and that's actually a really excellent point. It is the term that was created by the Association of Nature and Forest Therapy, but I myself am not a fan of the name for the
Yeah,
reason you just said. I do think it creates a sense of inaccessibility and that someone
yeah,
needs to be living in like Montana or something.
yeah,
No, this really can be done with people who are right smack in the middle of a city.
yeah, yeah.
What's really beautiful about it too is that in forest therapy, you know, I'm actually not the therapist in it.
Mm-hmm.
Guide. I'm
You're
just
the
opening
guide.
the
Yeah,
door. It's nature who's the therapist in it.
yeah. Yeah, love that. So, could you explain about the IADC, the induced after death communication? Can
Yeah.
you explain that a little bit? And for anybody, I've never heard of that before, and I'm sure there's others who haven't. Can you explain that to people so we kind of get an idea of what that's about?
Sure. And I'm thinking, do you think I should explain EMDR first?
Sure, go ahead, because yeah, that is a little more well known, but there might be people who don't know what it is. So yeah, just
Okay.
a explanation of that would be great too.
Okay, so just to give a quick overview to anyone
Yeah.
listening, EMDR is a type of psychotherapy that has been getting more popular in recent years. It stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy. It's a type of therapy where traditionally it was used for post-traumatic stress disorder, but now it's used for a variety of issues. And really, at its heart, it's about us processing a traumatic or difficult memory or situation, and more importantly, the negative belief associated with it. So that could be, I'm talking about very deep things here. It could be like,
Yeah.
I'm unlovable, I'm worthless, I'm useless, I'm terrible, just anything that's very dark and we carry inside of us.
Hmm.
And these negative core beliefs are so profound and so innate within us that we might not even realize that we're thinking about them.
Yeah.
What EMDR does is it allows us to take that up to the surface and process it and work through it and then incorporate in a positive belief instead. That way we feel better about ourselves and it changes our outlook. It's not like traditional therapy, like cognitive behavioral therapy. I actually call it more so a neurological one because what's going on in it is that you are undergoing what's called bilateral stimulation, which is where your eyes go back and forth. And there's other ways to do it too, but I don't want to spend too much time explaining that. And through doing this, it allows communication between both of our hemispheres. So it's creating a processing, which is very similar to what we're going through in REM sleep. It's, I don't want to say it's like you're dreaming while awake because it's not like that, but that's probably the easiest way to understand it because in REM, that's really the time of day where we are processing everything and filtering out what's worth keeping and what isn't. And that's why we dream so much because really we're trying to just make sense of things going on. EMDR is very similar.
Yeah.
So I bring all that up to explain IADC. So, IADC is an EMDR-like therapy that was developed by a psychologist named Dr. Alan Botkin. It uses the same bilateral process in EMDR where the bilateral stimulation helps people access a deeply relaxed and receptive state. It's not hypnosis. People really are completely aware of what's going on and they're fully in control. It's just, it brings them into a more relaxed state where they're more receptive to things. In this state, many people end up spontaneously experiencing a sense of connection or communication with a deceased loved one, that being human or animal. It's not about channeling or mediumship.
Hmm.
I don't claim to be a psychic. I am not a psychic. This is different. It's about emotional resolution. What happens in it afterwards is that clients often leave with a sense of peace, forgiveness, and reassurance that feels profoundly real. So, worded another way, really what's going on here is that it is a very rapid fire therapy.
Okay.
People meet with me twice, only twice. If they want to meet a third time, they can, but traditionally it's twice. Two 90-minute sessions over 2 consecutive days. In the first night or day or whatever, usually I do it at night, I am focusing on targeting just the sadness associated with the grief. Not anger, not confusion, not guilt, none of that, just the sadness. And when it ends up happening is that these people get a cathartic release because I
Mm.
really force them to have to sit through that sadness and
Yeah.
process it. As a result, they get cleansed of that. Once they're in this state, they're feeling much calmer, much more liberated than they did before. And that's what allows this opportunity for the after death communication to happen. What's happening here is since it's a psychotherapy, we call it a perception because we don't want to make it seem like something is happening or isn't happening. I just say to them things like, what do you notice? Describe
Hmm.
that to me. What are you experiencing right now? And then they lead me through this and they tell me everything they're experiencing. Usually for people, I get the indication in ADC is starting if they are very relaxed. And if they notice something like when they close their eyes, because in bilateral stimulation, you have to close your eyes for part of
Yeah.
it. They notice something like vivid colors,
Hmm.
or some describe a white or gold light. Other people describe a fog. Other people describe a tunnel. A tunnel is very common in ADCs.
Hmm.
And then from there, it just gets more enriched. And it's very sensory, usually visual, but sometimes too, it's more so a thought or even like a feeling that their loved one is touching them.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it's beautiful.
Yeah. It sure sounds like it. My goodness.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
I I have found it's really transformed my practice. I have been a grief therapist for many years, and
Mm-hmm.
I always felt like there was just a certain point where people feel stuck.
Mm,
They're
yeah.
saying to me, like, you know what, all in all, I'm doing better, but I just wish I could let go of this sadness. I just wish I could talk to them again, those kinds of things.
Mm,
And that's really where the IADC comes in because it's about that. It's about honoring our continued bonds and seeing it that death doesn't end a relationship. It means the relationship has simply changed.
yeah. That sounds so nice. Yeah. So do you work with family members in hospice? People who have family members who are in hospice?
I have for that I do more so um therapy leading up to the anticipatory grief and also the caregiving stress. IADC, I should note, really is not recommended for around that time or immediately after death. It
Oh,
is
okay.
supposed to be about a year out because we
Oh, okay.
recognize in it that people are naturally going to be much more stressed when going through it at the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned that you are in New York. So obviously, of course, you work with people in person. Do you work with anybody remotely very often, or and is it just one-on-one, or do you work with any groups or anything like that?
Um, I actually am mainly virtual. It's just the ecotherapy that I do in person, but I also
Okay.
have done it remotely. But I want to say a good 95% of my practice is virtual.
Okay.
Uh, IEDC itself, I have done in person, but it can be done online. I do it very frequently online. And
Mm,
also just EMDR and everything else I do in general. I have done groups before. I'm currently taking a pause with them, but I
okay.
did used to run a group that was called Millennials in Mourning, and it
Mm,
was developed for millennials who are experiencing parent loss, and not just parent loss, but also all of the things that come with that at that age. Uh,
yeah.
when I first made it, it was millennials weren't like really like in their 40s yet. So it was more
Hmm.
like focusing on like college graduation and like weddings and that kind of stuff. I am trying to update it now. So it's more so about, raising children and all of that. And I'm thinking about making a younger version as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Speaking of grief, do you work with people who have grief around other things that might not be related to a death of a person, like the loss of time or, a long illness and they came out of it, or a move or a divorce or something to where their life has changed due to something ending or something missing that they used to have, and they're going through grief, but it's not necessarily what we think of as grief with the death of a loved one.
Yes, and actually bring up a great point there that grief is really just loss in
Yeah,
general. Yes, I mean, I'm trying to be respectful of HIPAA, of course, but yes, I've worked with
sure.
people
Yeah,
who are experiencing grief to a job loss or
yeah,
a very profound relationship or just I don't know, just having like lost it all. One day they had a lot of security, the next day they didn't.
yeah.
Uh um I also do pet loss as well
Oh,
because I
nice.
feel like
Yeah.
yeah, and that can be done with IADC as well, by
Mm.
the way, because I feel like that's probably something that still gets very much overlooked. People just
Oh,
see it
yeah.
as like just get over it. And people don't realize that when they say that, for many people, their dog or cat or whatever really was their most loyal, loving friend.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. A lot of times people have been with a pet from childhood. So yeah, it's a huge part of people's life and definitely overlooked. I mean, yeah, I'm a pet sitter, so
Yeah,
so
get it.
I hear about this a lot, and I mainly pet sit elderly or special needs pets. So I see this a lot, and I don't have any kind of training or anything in pet loss, but I was thinking of getting some. But people
Yeah.
go through grief just as much as they do with any loved one that has passed. So that's great. I love to hear that you do
Yeah, and
that
thank
as
you
well.
too, especially. pet sitting for those animals that are especially vulnerable.
Yeah.
Um, it's very meaningful and soulful work. So thank you for what you do.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, but I
Um,
think it's good to normalize those kinds of losses. Another
mhm.
example too, of course, I think people feel uncomfortable talking about is that
Yeah.
sometimes too, their relationships with their beloved animal really can be, in fact, their closest one, especially if
Mhm.
they come from like complex trauma or something where the
Yeah.
people in their lives have not been good to them.
Right.
Yeah. I've had to be really personal with clients sometimes when they felt bad about that. And I've said to them, like, look, obviously I mourned my parents very heavily. But then I told them, but I'm going to tell you the truth. Losing my dog was harder for me than losing my grandparents and losing my uncles and some of my aunts. And I was like, it's not that I have anything against them. It's just I had a very formal relationship with them. I only saw them
Yeah.
for holidays. I wasn't close to them.
Yeah.
And I think, like, once I said that, they were just like, oh, thank God. I thought I was like the only person thinking this. And I was like, no, it's so normal. It is absolutely normal.
Yeah, so then there's shame associated with it then. If they thought that they were the only one thinking that way, then they probably feel ashamed as well, and then that brings up other issues for them. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's great. I love that. Um, so do you want to talk about you are on Instagram, Facebook, you have your website, sugarmaplecounseling.com, and you also are on Psychology Today website.
Yes.
So, where is the best place for people to reach you?
Honestly, really going to www.sugarmaplecounseling.com. I fully admit I don't really use social media all that
Hmm.
much. Um, so my pages exist, but they're pretty inactive.
Okay.
Yeah, the best way to reach me is through there or finding me on Psychology Today.
Okay.
You type in Valerie Smith and then just put New York. I should populate. And if it says LCSW in there, that's me.
Okay. Okay. Great. And we'll have all those links in the show notes and in the description below. So, everybody check out her website. It's a beautiful site. There's a lot of information there. So, yeah, make sure you check it out. Is there anything else that you want to make sure that you share or that you want to talk about before we go today?
Yeah, I touched on the forest therapy and the IADC, and I just really quickly wanted to mention a therapy I've been developing that kind of
Yeah.
incorporates everything. So it is definitely very elementary right now, but I'm loosely calling it Ecotherapy Enhanced Grief Processing Therapy. I'm probably going to change the name because that's a
Mm-hmm.
mouthful, but it's really about integrating forest therapy and grief counseling and spiritual frameworks into one model. It's for people who want to heal in a way that honors both evidence-based practice and spiritual meaning making. And the idea is to help people reconnect, not just with their loved one, but with life itself, where nature becomes the container for that transformation.
Nice.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
very nice. Very nice. So, any ideas or goals for when that'll be available?
I'm hoping to really have something launched summer of next year. Just full
Okay.
disclosure, it's hard. I got a toddler.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so like when I'm not working, I'm doing like diaper changes and all that
Oh
stuff.
gosh. Yeah. So speaking of that really quickly, so do you work with children as well, or do you or just adults at this point?
Teenagers and adults.
Teenagers and adults. Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love children, but I don't have any background in working with them
Yeah.
besides like a few cases I had as an intern. So,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much. The time always goes so fast. And like I said, I'd love to have you back on another time where we can deep dive into whatever you think would be the best thing to deep dive into.
Yeah,
Maybe next summer when your new program is launched. That might
yeah,
be a good idea.
yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah. So, everybody, like I said, all the information will be below. Please check it out, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on the podcast platforms. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you, Valerie, for being my guest today.
Yes, thank you as well. Have a great evening.